Well, welcome back to the podcast, Conversations with Jeff Bucknam. Dr. Jeff Bucknam is the lead pastor of teaching and vision at Harvest Bible Chapel in Chicagoland. I'm your host, Tommy Creutz, and we are going to have a conversation with someone today because we believe that everyone has a story. But before we get into that conversation, we are going to have what we call the preamble ramble, where we take some time and talk about whatever it is that we want to talk about. And so today, Jeff, I need you. There's been an update to a story.
Oh,
a conspiracy, if you will.
okay.
There has been an update, and you need to know about it, and the people need to know. I was driving on 14 the other day.
Okay. The road that goes through Crystal Lake
and all the way to our Rolling Meadows campus.
Yep.
They are linked together.
Okay.
And we've talked about this on the podcast before. There's a fake tree.
Yes.
In Crystal Lake. Big story. Probably the biggest story that Crystal Lake has ever seen. And we have wild conspiracy theories about what it is. Is it a giant...
A Chipotle opened there, though, a while ago.
Huh?
Like a Chipotle opened there. That was a pretty big story, too.
Yeah, Canes. Canes.
Yeah, that's right, Canes.
Yeah.
Okay, after the Canes opening.
Yeah.
This tree,
big, it's big. Big story. And we were talking about, what could it be? It might be the place where the birds that aren't real get recharged, on the branches. It could be a missile silo. We don't know, right?
Yep.
But here's what happened is there's some changes to the tree.
Okay.
The tree has changed.
By itself?
I didn't see anyone put anything on it.
Okay.
And yet...
It's changed.
There's things on the tree now. The top. They look like, I don't want to get too in the weeds. Have you guys seen it? We've got some Crystal Lakeans here.
Okay.
In our among us, in our midst.
Right.
Have you seen it lately?
It's making the rounds. There's
have you seen it lately? Okay.
There's some important observations that people have made about this tree.
Yeah. It has some things at the top now that could resemble emitters of some kind. And it's, man, I was really hoping that you guys would have seen this and known this. It's just me. You're saying it's a cell tower, but isn't that what they'd want you to believe?
If I were gonna put some brain control device in Crystal Lake, I would make it look like a cell tower that looked like a tree too.
And maybe the thing that's controlling the brains of the people is making us, it's just a cell tower.
That's right.
Yeah. See, it goes deep.
Yep.
It's the 5G.
Yes.
Could it be rocket pods? Could it be, it could be a number of things. And yet.
So tell me, the moral to this story is if you wait long enough, things will eventually become clear to us. Is that what we're saying?
That might be the moral.
That perhaps you jumped to a few conclusions without having all the facts.
Yes, and now I'm having to make up outlandish stories about what it could be.
Right.
So that I don't look
Have you ever noticed that is the way that we do things, though?
Yeah,
is that when we're proven wrong, we're like, yes, or it's this other thing. It's actually an alien launch site.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Rocket defense system.
My cell phone seems to get better coverage around it.
Yeah.
But
T-Mobile has vastly improved.
All right. So speaking of T-Mobile, during the Super Bowl, did you notice what they've done?
Jeff?
So T-Mobile has made a deal with Elon. I now know all your information, Musk.
Okay.
And they have put so you can access Starlink, his internet stuff. And I signed up for it, even though I'm not on T-Mobile.
I can access it right now?
Well, no, you had to sign up for it during the Super Bowl.
Oh, and
I signed up for it because you could use any of the coverage or any of the what do you call it, Verizon or the other.
Yeah. Sure.
You can use any of them and sign up for this. So I was on the plane just the other day on an airplane.
Yeah.
And I accessed Starlink.
And did it work?
Yeah, it works to text.
Wow.
So here's what he's done. It is kind of amazing. The guy has basically made it so that your cell phone, as long as you have a view of a sky, is a satellite phone.
Yeah.
And so they're just doing text right now, but they're going to go from text and they're going to do like data and all the other bits, phone and data. So I'm trying to figure out how anyone's going to compete with the dude who's got all the satellites in the air.
Does that scare you a little bit?
Who now controls all of our information.
Does that scare you just a little bit?
Yeah.
That a satellite from space can give you internet. What else can it do? Huh?
I know. But I do know that people out in the middle
Shoot a laser beam at you?
They could. People out in the middle of nowhere are now able to get good quality internet.
Yeah, it's good.
And I am surprised that Google a number of years ago had a plan to float internet by balloons. Did you know this? Mm-hmm. Yeah, they started it for a while.
Yeah, and we shot it down because we thought it was the Chinese. Isn't that the thing?
No, they had another idea, and then they were going to do these Wi-Fi by balloons all over the place. But apparently Elon Musk is like, I'll take your balloons.
I'll raise it.
And I will raise them
to space.
And launch rockets that I will reuse because they have a reverse button.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Pretty unbelievable stuff.
It is. It's stuff. It is. We're getting to the point closer and closer to the Star Trek world. Right?
Sure.
Now we need an impulse drive thing. Do you know what those are?
Yeah.
What do they call? I can't remember.
What are we talking about?
Warp drive, impulse. They're the same thing.
Yeah.
But Star Wars calls it a warp drive and the other one called
hyperdrive.
It hyperdrive.
Yeah,
whatever.
hyperdrive
all right. But yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm very interested in the modern technology and how it's changing everything rapidly. And I don't totally understand AI.
Who can?
But everyone tells me that it will replace most things. Most customer service will be gone.
Yeah.
But then I keep wondering, what are those people going to do?
Yeah.
If your customer service and stuff, it's going to be a little bit odd. But
would it surprise you at all to know that I didn't watch the Super Bowl?
Why didn't you watch the Super Bowl? It's an American institution.
True. And I just didn't.
You didn't even watch the halftime show?
I didn't watch any of it.
I thought you'd really connect with the halftime show.
Really? What was it?
Kendrick Lamar.
Oh, yeah. I would have.
Yeah, it was really... You're into Kendrick Lamar, right?
Who isn't?
Who
isn't?
Well, I'm not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I kept thinking to myself while I was watching it, I think someone somewhere likes this. But I was not that person. Was what, Wes?
Yeah,
were
Wes
you liked it? Okay. See, I realized, though, very quickly, I don't think this is aimed at me, which is fine. It doesn't bother me at all.
Not like us?
At all. I'm old now. I'm in my 50s now. So if Bon Jovi were out there, I would have been like, come on.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. It was Kendrick Lamar. And apparently he said some really mean things about Drake.
Oh, some beef?
But I want you to know something.
Yeah.
That Kendrick Lamar could come into this room right now, sit down across from me and start talking to me, and I would not know that was Kendrick Lamar.
Oh, okay. You're not
well-versed. I might know Drake.
Okay, God's plan, yeah.
But I wouldn't know Kendrick Lamar. So apparently you know all these people. You're connected with the kids.
I'm a student of the culture.
Okay. But you didn't watch him on the Super Bowl, no. And you had no interest in watching the Super Bowl. Did you just not like the teams?
I'm trying to be more of a sports guy. I started with the Four Nations
hockey.
Yeah, I'm trying. I'm doing my best.
So who do you think's going to win the Four Nations hockey?
Well,
as we're speaking right now,
probably the USA.
The US and Canada will be playing in the United States.
Well, the US has already won against Canada, so I feel like it's time. Yeah. Time for it to happen again. And now it's on home field, right? Isn't it going to be?
I don't think they call it a field, but I think it's home ice.
Home ice. Yeah.
So there's little phrases that you might want to learn. About it.
Tell me more. Tell me more.
Well,
tell me more. What's it?
One of the things I've learned about hockey.
The other thing I learned about is first line and second line.
Well,
they call starter.
Yeah. Well, they call. Yeah. Well, everyone kind of starts in hockey. Mm-hmm. It's kind of you have different lines, and your top line, first line, is just your first group.
Yeah.
By the way, in Canada, every other sport is influenced by hockey. So whenever you play anything, like if you want to, so we would say it's time for a substitution. They would say time for a line change, even though you're not changing the line. You're just changing like a guy or something. Can I be on the next line? The kid will ask you. So was very odd for me, not knowing a ton about hockey.
Yeah.
But then living in Canada for the years that I did, I learned quite a bit about hockey.
Yeah.
Here's my piece of advice to you as a beginning hockey fan, meaning you,
Me,
from someone who was a beginning hockey fan recently. Just start when you're in a room with a bunch of guys. Just start yelling, "Cycle the puck."
Cycle the puck.
Just cycle the puck.
You just cycle the puck.
That's the phrase.
Okay.
Just cycle the puck.
Okay.
Yell it at the TV.
All right.
That
I'll probably be watching alone.
Listen to me.
The first couple, but
I don't know what it means.
Still?
No, I have no idea.
Okay.
No idea. But when I say it,
Yeah. John Smith.
there's a lot of people in the room who nod and say, "Yeah, cycle the puck." Yeah. So like you get the cheer going. Come on, cycle the puck, and then they'll join in.
Wow.
And you will be able to get through a hockey game, and people will think they'll start asking you questions at the intermission. By the way, it's not halftime because there's 2 of them.
Yeah.
There are periods. There's 3 periods, so it's not quarters. It's not halves.
Sure.
And between the periods at the intermissions, they'll ask you questions about like, how did you find the defenseman operating within his zone?
And I should say,
you should say, well, I just think they need to cycle the puck more.
Yeah, probably.
And when you say this, they will immediately nod and say, yes,
yes,
yes, yes.
And you're just like,
what I've decided is, I think that if I weren't doing what I'm doing right now, working, serving the Lord at the local church, I would see how far I could get in hockey commentary.
Okay.
By just talking about cycling the puck.
Yeah.
I think I could get pretty far. I think I might be able to get on ESPN.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of cycling the puck.
Wow, here we go. We've got a conversation.
Oh.
Yeah. And we are going to have it with Jon Woodin, who is from Crystal Lake.
Back from the dead and going to teach us about basketball.
Yeah. Yes, he's going to teach us about basketball. He is quite tall, as most of the men at Crystal Lake are. Not me, though. So, but
Jon is from Crystal Lake.
Jon is from Crystal Lake, and you guys are going to have a conversation because he has a story, and you guys are going to jump into his right now. Let's go. Trees are lit.
Here I sit with Jon Woodin. Jon, you've of course gotten a lot of basketball jokes before because Jon Woodin was the absolute greatest coach in basketball history, I think, for the most part.
One of 2 people in the Basketball Hall of Fame for coaching and playing. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, do you know he used to teach his players how to put on socks?
I did not.
That's a classic Woodin story. The first thing he would do, these players would come. UCLA, he was the coach in the 1950s, and they would come along, and he would teach them how to put on their socks.
Well, I think socks were a new technology then, weren't they?
But it was like, you have to have your socks fit the shoes and whatever. So
interesting.
So Jon, I want you to know that that's your heritage. No,
it is. I've gotten it my whole life.
I bet you have. Yeah. Jon Woodin's here?
Yep.
And then they see you and they're
visiting
like,
basketball team coaches going, this isn't real on your roster. There's no way that you got a guy named this.
There's a guy actually who they made a commercial of him a while ago. His name was Michael Jordan, but he was this very small, bald white man.
Oh yeah.
And people would be all excited, and he'd come in for a business thing, doctor's office. Michael Jordan, you're Michael Jordan. Oh, come on.
Yeah.
They were all
love
excited.
that commercial. Yeah, that's a good one.
So you're from Crystal Lake.
I am. Yeah, we started in Elgin.
Started attending Harvest.
In Elgin. Yeah, so I started in 2005 while I was in college, and then when my wife and I moved back to Illinois, we floated around to some churches and landed back at Harvest in December of 2009.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually want to get to that. So you're from this area?
Yeah, I grew up on Lake in the Hills.
Okay.
Yeah, so all the stuff.
What's growing up in Lake in the? I got to be honest. As somebody who comes from outside this area, and I go by Lake in the Hills.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of hills, and it's just a little lake.
So
but it also feels like it's above me when I'm there. Like I ride my bike through that area and you're underneath the lake and then you go up a hill and then there's the lake.
Way over the lake.
To which I'm like, wait a minute, somebody poked a hole in this thing. We would all drown.
Well, yeah, because there is the block, because it's man-made.
Yeah, okay.
That lake is man-made. And so then a lot of that space, like around Crystal Lake and around Lake in the Hills, were a lot of like vacation homes.
Really?
Yeah. So some of those homes are a little smaller. They're a little different.
Yeah.
And so what you end up with is that transition of when they were vacation homes and they became people's actual homes.
So people used to vacation at Lake in the Hills.
Mm-hmm. And in Crystal Lake. Yeah, because the train would come out from Chicago. And so you're, that 40 minutes to an hour, and you'd have your little cabin out in Crystal Lake. Because, at that time, it's the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
So I remember when Randall Road was 2 lanes.
Okay.
And there was a dairy farm on it in Lake in the Hills. So, it's come a long, long way. From where it was. But I grew up in the old part, and it is hilly in comparison to the new part of Lake in the Hills. Because, they just scrape all the dirt off of stuff now, and you end up with flat. And so I grew up rollerblading down all the hills.
Yeah. It is actually one of the only places that I ride my bike that actually has some hills.
Yeah.
That and Barrington Hills.
Yeah, a little bit of a workout.
Little bit. Yeah.
Coming
from where I come from,
depending on
they're all small hills. It's all very
small.
Very little. But tell me about your family you grew up in.
I grew up, both parents grew up in a church in Crystal Lake.
What was the name of your church in Crystal Lake?
Free Church.
What's it called?
Evangelical Free Church of Crystal Lake.
Okay.
Yep. Right off Crystal Lake.
What do you remember most about the church that you grew up in?
I very, very young remember being told not to run in the hallways. It was very active. That's one thing from like my early childhood. And I was very like the church that we were in then, the building that we were in then is now the Salvation Army in Crystal Lake.
Oh.
And so, it had that like vaulted ceiling that was all wood paneling.
Yes.
Every week we had the organ playing and all the songs were out of the hymnals. And the thing that I think drives home more is in 93, they dedicated a new building down the road. And for the 2 or 3 years prior to that, I got to spend every Monday night and Saturday with my dad working on the new building.
Really?
Which at that age for me.
Building.
Yeah. So they did a lot of congregational
stuff.
Like sweat equity into the space. The company that GC'd the building, that man went to the church. And so between all of the work that the contractors did, there were specific projects that the members did. Like we did all of the insulation.
So they would say, well, we need this sort of stuff done. And we were like, we can do the labor for that.
There's certain things that they did so that it was more cost effective to build the space.
Yeah. I was part of a church that did similar stuff. I was very useless at most of those things. In fact, they got to the point where they were like, it'd be better if you just didn't show up to these work events because this might surprise you, but I tended to talk the whole time and just make jokes.
Oh, yeah. I can see that.
Yeah. And then the people were like, we enjoy the camaraderie and stuff, but you don't do anything. It's like,
You're there for moral support.
I'm not very good.
No, that's good.
I'm not very good. I don't want to actually get in the way of the building of the place.
Yeah.
So you have brothers or sisters?
I have 2 older sisters.
Okay.
We were all homeschooled all the way through high school.
Homeschooled, but I've got my 2 older sisters and then baby me. How much older than you are?
7 and 4 years.
Okay.
Different. Yeah.
So you were a little baby boy.
I was the baby. Yep. Only boy, favorite, and the youngest. I think favorite works too. If you're the only boy.
When you're yes. Yeah, you end up having a nice special relationship with your mom who loves you very much.
Uh-huh. I think she wanted to kill me some days, but that's okay.
Well, especially after you have a couple of girls, she might be accustomed to a different way.
Homeschooling me was very different than homeschooling them.
Why did you choose homeschool? That would have been different back in. Was that different back in that day? Was it still uncommon as much? It's more common today. I think.
I mean, it's super common in Crystal Lake.
Okay.
My parents chose it because they wanted to be able to influence the things that were in our lives in and out. Yeah. And to make sure that the things of the world were not just pounded into us.
Yeah.
And so, in the actual day-to-day, it's a lot different. Because
so what do you, when you I don't even want to call it went to
real school.
No, when you went to homeschool.
Oh, okay.
Describe your day for me. I've often wondered this. What does a homeschool family do during the day? Like were there certain times that you did?
Yeah, we would normally do school in the morning, and then
school, your mom's not teaching you; she's giving you other.
Well, it depends, because homeschool then was not like homeschool now. I couldn't just hop online and have somebody teach me and go through all of my stuff through a website. And so, fundamentally, it's the same, but the way that you're functioning through your day is very different. And so we had assignment sheets that my mom would fill out for a week at a time, and we'd have lesson plans and things like that we went through. My mom was very, very intentional with homeschool. Like I knew a lot of homeschoolers, and you look at them like, yeah, I do all my stuff in like an hour and a half every day. And I'm like, are you doing school? And meanwhile, I'm sitting there playing with a pencil, pretending it's a spaceship, and it takes me 4 hours to get one subject done because I'm not actually in the midst of things. But yeah, she was very, very intentional. So we had a space in our basement with like an extra kitchen table down there, and that was our homeschool space. A couple 100 square feet of just all of the books that were compiled over the years. So between both my sisters and me, my mom homeschooled for 20 plus years straight.
Wow. Was there ever a time that you felt like you wanted to go to school?
When I was in elementary school, I was like, man, my friends get to go all these fun things at school. I really wanted to, and I'm really glad now that that wasn't a thing for me.
Yeah.
I think I would not have excelled well there.
Yeah. Well, each kid is kind of unique.
Yeah. Well, and then I went half-time in high school.
Okay.
So that I could play sports. It was a requirement. You had to be a half the time student.
Okay. What school did you attend then?
Jacobs in Algonquin.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you went because you wanted to play?
I played freshman, sophomore year. I played soccer. Okay. I played basketball for 4 years, and I did track and field junior and senior year.
Right. So did you just go in the morning or something?
No, they did block scheduling, so it was 4 classes a day. So you had 2 in the morning. Everybody had lunch at the same time. And then you had 2 in the afternoon. So I would get up early, and I'd get all of my important things done. Math and reading and science and English and all of that. And then I would go, and I took 4 years of German, and I did driver's ed, and I took an art class, and I took shop, and I did welding, and just did a bunch of electives and had a good time. And then I played my sports.
Okay.
And once I got to public school, I was making this is a gigantic waste of time.
You thought public school was
public school, yeah, because you're sitting there and you always have the kids that just don't want to be there, and them not wanting to be there is like, I'm going to interrupt everybody else's time.
Yeah.
And what I realized is they spend half their day trying to get all the kids that don't want to pay attention to pay attention.
Yeah.
And they accomplish so much less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and
I by no means am I a good student, even while I was in college.
I mean, you obviously get more. You would get more personalized attention for your particular learning style and stuff.
Yeah. Well, my mom and I would race at doing math problems because it would take me way longer. Yeah, because I would just.
You're not a mathematician?
I'm really good at math, actually.
Are you?
Yeah, I got to the point where we kind of stopped because my mom was trying to teach herself like advanced mathematics and calculus and trig. Ugh. And she's trying to learn it herself to teach me because I was a level or 2 above where my sisters were in high school. And so my math aspirations kind of died there, which is fine. But there was no math in my degree anyways. It's fine. So it's interesting because I have a bachelor's of science in biblical studies and camp administration.
What?
With no math.
A bachelor's of science in
biblical studies and camp administration.
From where?
Philadelphia Biblical University. It's now Cairn University out in Langhorne, Pennsylvania.
I don't even know where that is. That's okay.
It's north of Philadelphia by about 35 minutes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. It used to be Philadelphia
How'd you
College
get interested in that?
In that school?
Yeah.
I had a youth pastor in college or in high school that went there, him and his wife, and I would list him as my first real mentor growing up, and I got to see them walk some things that God put in their life in a way that was more godly than I understood.
Yeah.
And in some of those ways, the godly thing that he did was just to not say anything. And so I was geared up to go to automotive school and make money. And I thought hey, I'm going to go fix stuff and just make money and live my life and it'll be great. And I got to a point where God was like, but what if you can affect one kid for me?
Yeah.
And so I went to college declaring student min, and I went to a 1-year Bible school up in Cable, Wisconsin called Wisconsin Wilderness Campus, which was attached to Philadelphia Biblical University with 29 other students.
Wisconsin Wilderness
Campus.
Okay, hold on before you continue.
Yeah.
You need to tell me what they do at Wisconsin Wilderness Campus.
Okay. So it's
and why was that something you just had heard about?
That was something that as I was looking at PBU, it was one of the things that they offered.
Okay, so you decided to start there.
I decided to start there. I was like, heck, go spend a year at a camp.
A full year?
9 months, yeah.
But basically, you were at a camp. What would you do at the wilderness?
Well, so we had one class for a whole semester, and then once a week we had a new professor, and our classes were 3 weeks. So, for instance, we had Dr. Taves, and he came in, and we got our syllabus on a Sunday night, and between Sunday night and Friday, we were required to read Psalms twice, and the commentary from the Bible Knowledge Commentary once, and I'm a slow reader. I think there was a paper or two involved in that too. So some of our weeks were just very, very heavy. You had 4 days. It was really Monday to Friday, and your hope was...
Were you in class all day?
We were in class for probably like 4 or 5 hours a day, roughly. Yeah, so it would be like a normal load worth of classes. You got to figure it would function more like a J term, where you're going for a 3-week class and it's just all very condensed.
Yeah.
And I learned how to study a lot better that year, and I learned really how to write a paper.
Okay.
Because I did a lot of writing.
Yeah.
And I was I read my paper we had to essentially do a 10 to 12 page commentary on Habakkuk.
Oh yeah.
For our first semester. And I reread it recently. I was like, man, the D was forgiving.
Yeah.
This is terrible. Absolutely terrible.
I don't want to fail him. But
yeah, but this is terrible. Yeah. Yeah.
So why do they call it wilderness? Just location, or did you do wildernessy stuff?
Well, we went up to the Boundary Waters for 10 days.
You pretend that I don't know what that is.
So the Boundary Waters is...
I know everybody else listening is
lakes,
like, why don't you know that?
It's the lakes between Minnesota and Canada.
Okay.
And they are the freshest freshwater lakes pretty much in the world. And so you pay attention to what the water does that year. And so you're canoeing through these lakes. There's no motors. It's all manpower. A lot of times you'll get to a spot and you have to porter, which means you have to pick up all your stuff and carry it to the next lake.
How far?
So it depends, 100 feet, quarter of a mile. It depends on where you're
like
at.
a canoe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and you have to carry all your stuff.
Sounds very Lewis and Clarky.
It is. It's a blast. Absolutely fun. There's no lights. And so when it's dark and all you see is stars and it's incredible. So we did that for a few days.
Do they teach you like outdoor skills?
Not necessarily.
So it's not like you're going up to the Eagle Scout camp where they're going to teach you how to tie knots and use a knife.
I mean, we did a little of that. Our first 3 weeks was like an environmental science class where we did a lot of the trees of the area and birds. And, like when you're in a science class trying to figure out what birds are, you're making stuff up.
Yeah.
I saw that warbler. There it was. Yeah.
My wife, we were walking on a path the other day, and she was talking about how she would like sometime to like learn about birds. And it was at that moment, Jon, that I realized that we are officially old. Because when I was a young man, there's no way I would have said, yeah, let's go out and stand and look at
do some birding.
But now she's like, yeah, but it gives kind of a point to the walk. And I understood that. The fact that I understood that scared me.
See, the key is to be a little nerdy about your optics.
Okay.
And you get to pick out your binoculars.
Okay.
So
I
think that's the key.
Okay. So you were there for 1 year, and then you went on to Philadelphia Bible University?
Philadelphia Biblical University, yeah.
Okay. And you took what did you want to do?
Well, so I originally went and I was going to do youth student min.
Yep.
And while I was there, the program that I ended up in came in to tell us about the camp program they had. And I went, there's a camp program? You mean there's ministry things that don't involve like desks constantly?
Yeah.
Desks, me and desks aren't necessarily friends. Unfortunately, I have one now and it's fine. But I saw this opportunity to go do camping ministry, and I changed my major that week, and I redeclared as campman. So then I spent 2 years in Philadelphia, doing all of the rest of my gen eds and all of my Bible courses. And then my 4th year was at Forest Springs, which is like northwest of Wausau, Wisconsin. So it's about 5.5 hours north of here.
Okay.
In Wisconsin. So they have an internship program plus a senior year program for several colleges in the United States, which
where you go and you work at this camp.
And so
camp.
you
what
spend
what were you doing?
Well, so there's a few things. It is school still, and so by time I finished my program, I have about a 70-page business proposal for a camp.
Really?
And so,
is there a business proposal for camps? Are like
sure.
falling apart in terms of like attendance and stuff? What kind of camp?
So what I designed was a multi-sport camp, and I based it out of Kentucky.
Okay.
Because at that time, finding laws based around youth camps online was really hard.
Yeah.
And Kentucky had that, and it had the spot was kind of a space where I wanted. So my wife grew up riding horses. I grew up playing ball and contact sport things. And so my idea was a ministry-driven camp for equestrian and sport, other sports, basketball, soccer, and all of that. And to just then, for the summer, and then in the winter, you're able to host youth groups and things like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and do you think you could have made it work?
I don't know if I'd ever want to start a camp. Even when I was writing it, this would be great, but I don't know if I'd ever would have wanted to start a camp as much as I would have wanted to jump into a camp.
Yeah, one that's already existing.
Because there's a lot of things. Like we moved into a house that we built last year.
Okay.
And it's the only thing
you built the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I didn't build it, but the builders built it.
Got it.
They didn't really want me around.
No.
But there's nothing else on the property. So there's no sheds, there's no nothing. And so when you start brand new, you start with nothing, and you have to work to build all of the things.
Mm-hmm.
Versus if you buy a house with an outbuilding or something, you've already got something.
Yeah.
And so when you're able to add on to something that's already there and grow the thing that's already there, you're already kind of down that road of something already.
Yeah.
And so honestly, if I was to jump back into camp ministry, I would want to go back to Forest Springs.
Okay.
So
it's a Christian camp. This.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. It's celebrated its 60th year a few years ago. Yeah.
Are you like is camping a part when you were in high school and stuff? Did you attend camps, or was this? Yeah,
I grew up.
Your experience
I grew
in
up,
camping?
and in 3rd grade, I went to my first overnight camp for a week at Timberlea.
Okay.
Which is like 2 hours from here in Wisconsin, and I loved it. And then once I hit junior high and high school, it was youth retreats, but those were still at camps, and so I have a lot of moments where God kind of chipped away at some of the things that I had going on while I was at camp. I was baptized at a camp. There's just a lot of things that like my life kind of revolved around youth camp, and it's amazing that the Lord led me towards that as a major.
Would you look back on it now and you say that you've used that major, or is it something that you just did at the time because it was there?
I was on a committee here at Harvest for a while for Camp Harvest.
There you go.
Years and years ago. I did student min with Harvest, and so I've done some things up at camp, and so I've had an opportunity to use that, and I've used it within the realm of just ministry at Harvest. Yeah. So there's some things where I'm like, I look back at my college career and I go, man, I probably should have gotten like a vocational something at college. And simultaneously I go, but look what the Lord has done with what he what he allowed me to do.
So how long have you been married?
It'll be 18 years this July.
Okay, so we're getting to did you meet her at school?
No. We met at the Free Church in Crystal Lake.
One of those
In
church relationships in high school.
In high school, yeah.
Was this love at first sight?
Not necessarily. No.
What does not necessarily mean?
Well, I mean, like we met at one point, and then it was like months later.
Okay.
It was one of those like relationships born on a retreat.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing, and it bloomed. Yeah.
Okay. Did she just went to your church then?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she was homeschooled too.
Okay. So
Yeah.
a couple homeschool kids.
Yeah.
Meeting each other.
Yeah.
What does a little homeschool boy do when he meets a girl?
All the wrong things.
Okay. So how long did you did you ask her out at one point, or just kind of one day you were sitting across the table with each other?
She's a little younger than me.
Okay.
We're 2.5 years apart, and so the conversation was that yes, I wanted to date her if her parents were okay with that.
Yes.
And so I spent from age 9 to 19, I ushered almost every Sunday
At the church.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and very traditional. So I was in a suit.
Nice.
Every Sunday. And so years after this, we were married already, and her mom was going through a prayer book, and she wrote in there that she was praying for her daughter to meet a nice young boy like that ushers. And lo and behold, it was
There
me.
you go.
Yeah.
So
Careful what you wish for.
Well, you got in with the mom early.
Yeah.
And then as a result, you got the daughter.
Yeah. But I wore this. My mom in the 70s made my dad a 3-piece rust red corduroy suit, and I wore that thing to death in high school. It was great.
Wow.
Yeah, it was terrible. It was
that is quite a suit.
Yeah, I'd wear it for
red. Do you still have it?
Oh no, I mean my mom and dad might have it, but it for sure doesn't fit me anymore.
John, I would love to see that.
I was a twig of a boy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you get married.
Yeah, 2007.
And so what year did you meet her?
2004.
Okay, so
we
you dated
in 2004.
for quite a while.
Yeah.
And then how did you get into the work that you're doing? What do you do now? What kind of work?
I work for her dad, actually. I'm a director of facilities for his company.
Okay.
Yeah,
what is
do
the
all
name of
maintenance.
your company?
It's called APET.
APET.
Yeah, we wholesale live aquatics, saltwater aquatics, birds, reptiles, and small animals to pet stores in about 26 states.
Wow.
Something like that.
Do you have to travel?
I travel a little bit just to the other locations that we have, but yeah.
So like a pet store would buy your...
Yeah.
Or if I wanted to install a terrarium. What is a terrarium anyway?
Terrarium is something you put like non-aquatic things
Okay,
in.
but you wouldn't do that because you're aquatic.
Well, no, we do like a turtle. You could put a turtle in a terrarium because it's semi-aquatic, so you have to have some dry space and some wet space. But like a bearded dragon would be in a terrarium with sand. So yeah, we sell those too.
Do you have any of these animals in your home?
No.
Why not?
Just Rex's service dog.
I want to talk about Rex. Tell me about your children.
Rex is 15.
Yeah.
About to be 16. He's very excited.
Yes.
And Uriah would have been 13 this year.
Right.
And they're both they're amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uriah passed away this last
December
year.
11th, 23. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. How has tell me a little bit about him.
Uriah?
People obviously wouldn't know.
So Rex was born in 2009.
Yeah.
We got pregnant while we were at camp. So he's a camp baby, and that was planned. And in February, I want to say January, February of 2009, we had a level 2 ultrasound in Rockford, at which they said, hey, your child's all screwed up. Paraphrasing. He's got spina bifida. There's a lot of things going on. He's got a neural tube defect. All the nurses know what that is. And essentially what happens is the skin doesn't form around your spinal column, and your spine and your nerves are all exposed to the embryonic fluid and causes spinal damage. And so along with that, it pulls on the brain stem. And so Rex and Uriah both had shunts in their head so they could drain cerebral spinal fluid and stuff off the brain because there's just too much pressure. Because when the brain stem gets pulled, your brain gets pulled, and the ventricles close. And so that's how they drain. And it just is a little tube just under the skin, and it drains to the abdomen. Mm-hmm. Very cool. And so,
how did you guys handle the news when you first found that out?
We went from Rockford to Randall in 72 before I said anything. It was a drive. And the first thing I said, I looked at Maggie and I said, well, I guess we're getting a minivan, because she loathed them. I didn't know what else to say. And then I kind of kept it to myself. And one of the guys that was in the program with me at camp when we were back, when people started finding out, he said, how dare you not tell any of us? It's been 2 weeks and we could have all been praying. And I was like, very few times have I been hit, like getting hit by an arrow in the chest going, you're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct. And so from that point,
why didn't you tell?
I didn't know how to. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to think. I didn't know. I was still kind of in shock. And, it's a weird thing to be told, you're so excited for your firstborn, and, you're then told, hey, there's this road in front of you that you don't know anything about.
Right.
Yeah. And on top, let's be really honest. Parents don't know what the road in front of them ever looks like.
No.
But ours was just very stark in front of us, so that it was going to be something else.
Yeah.
And so,
have you found it to be stark?
No.
You're 16 years down the track now.
Yeah. I can't explain to you how many times the Lord has shown up for us. And it's incredible to me how joyful the child that has every right not to be is.
He is a remarkable kid.
Yeah.
I haven't spent a lot of time with Rex, but
right.
When I see him, he's a remarkable kid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He's in his wheelchair.
Yep.
And which creates a whole series of challenges, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. He's been ambulatory most of his life?
Yes. Well, so he has a brace that allows him to walk, but it's pretty monotonous for him to do that. And so, other than for during PT and stuff, physical therapy, he's in his wheelchair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's a very happy kid.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has a really good attitude about
absolutely.
things.
Yes, he does.
Lots of good opinions about sports. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
He's got some of the coolest shoes I've seen too.
He does. Yeah. It's nice. You can buy him shoes and he doesn't ruin them because he's not running through the puddles.
Exactly right.
And so then in 2012, Uriah was born.
Okay.
And we had a very similar experience. We went to Rockford for a level 2 ultrasound.
Were you expecting the same?
No, they had told us that it was kind of a fluke and they needed to just make sure she had a different kind of a vitamin. And, turns out that is the case for most people. And we are one of maybe a handful of families that had 2 kids with spina bifida in the nation. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Totally crazy.
It is crazy.
So we got to meet with the same, genetic counselors in Rockford. And it was there's a different tone there. We'd gotten to see what the Lord was doing. And, we got to the ultrasound and the doctors talking to us after and we're like, it's okay. We've got this. The Lord had us the whole way. And, we thought we understood all of the things. And, the reality is we had no idea what the Lord was going to put us through with Uriah. He spent his first 2 months in the hospital. He had 2 chest tubes, was on vent for 3 weeks. And that was just in the first 8 weeks.
Yeah.
His first surgery was, 10 hours after he was born, 12 hours. Yeah. His neurosurgeon came in on a Saturday, to do his 6-hour surgery. It was only the second time she had done a back closure and a shunt placement simultaneously.
Wow.
So, pictures of him as a newborn, his head is the same size as his whole body. And so he looks like the aliens from Mars Attacks a little bit. Yeah. And so,
that would have been a challenge just the visual of it. You expect the child to look a particular way. And
yeah. Well, and so Maggie was having like weekly ultrasounds. So we knew his head was big.
Oh,
He was 6.5 pounds and his head was half his body.
Yeah.
And so, he was a peanut.
Yeah.
He was a peanut. And so Maggie, she gave birth at Women's Prentice, which is right next to Northwestern, which is connected to Lurie Children's now. But at that time, Children's Memorial was in Lincoln Park. And so Uriah and I left that night for Lincoln Park. And so Maggie was at one hospital and we were at another. And we got to Children's too late for social work to get me to Ronald McDonald House that night. So I prepared for that, and I slept in the back of a van in January for 2 nights downtown. And so the nice thing was we had a remote start. So when I'd wake up and it was cold, I'd hit the remote start and it would warm up, and I'd go back to sleep. And so I did that for a couple nights. And then during the day, I just spent my days in the NICU hanging out with Uriah. Yeah. So
now Uriah got out of the hospital and was, I don't know if I ever met Uriah.
I don't know.
But he was out of the hospital but back in several times over the next number of years.
Yeah. I mean, they both, between the two of them, they've had like 27 surgeries.
Holy smokes. You guys have got like a frequent flyer card.
Right. Well, it's one of those things. If you're asking the Lord to give you more faith, be careful how you pray for that.
Yeah.
Because we went through this whole thing and not, she was 21 and I was 23. We were brand new at just being married. And now we had a kid that had all of these things. And then we had a second doing all of the things. And it's crazy how the hard things can be kind of mundane after a while.
Yeah. It becomes the norm for you.
It becomes the norm.
It's like, I mean, it's not the right example, but, I'm always surprised at how people in Chicago are not that bothered by the cold. People like me are like, what is this?
Yeah.
But people here are like, but similarly where I used to be from, people, the rain didn't bother me that much, but other people would come there and this is the worst place ever. But it's what, if you're facing the same thing over and over again, it's your world. And so it becomes the norm. It's just the way that you have to live. Uriah, at some point, he had been in the hospital were you worried for his life prior to the time that he passed away, or
there's been some times where it was close.
Yeah.
And so even in December of 23, we've been down this road. This kid pulls out. He was so strong, and that kid was a fighter. And so, the fact that it ended the way it did was a surprise. And simultaneously, it was a blessing for him to not have to fight anymore. And, but Uriah was nonverbal, but was also the most verbal person you've ever seen.
Well, there's other ways to communicate.
Yeah. And so they did some testing with him when he was about 8 years old, and they determined that he could understand at about a 6-year-old level. So he understood you. Yeah. And it was amazing to tell him to do something or not to do something. And he would look at you and then his face would change and he would do the exact thing you told him not to do and smile while he did it. Because he knew like how much trouble am I going to get
totally.
in? Like, and so he would play that system so well. And he had, the number of people that just absolutely loved and adored him at church was incredible. Yeah.
So it's been a little over a year now. So how has that year gone?
Weird. It's been weird.
What does that mean? What have you found the most?
Like the weirdest, the oddest thing to start with is your schedule. Because we would do about an hour's worth of stuff with him in the morning and an hour's worth of stuff with him at night, or half hour, something like that. And so that schedule of medical and all of the other things that you're doing with him, that's gone. And now all of a sudden there's 2 hours just available in your day. That's weird.
Yeah.
He used to hang out in his room and just make a bunch of noise and play with his toys and watch movies. And so that noise is gone. And so there's some of the things that he did and would do. that's different. It took a while. Like every once in a while, I would feel like you forgot something at home. And so it took me up until pretty recently, as I was having a conversation with somebody, and they were expressing the emotions that they were having at something at that time. And I go, I've been there. Like my my base emotion is anger. That's where I'm at. And I went, but I haven't been angry. Nothing surrounding Uriah's death has made me angry. Sorrow. And it took me over a year to finally like zero in on the thing that I was feeling the whole time. Some of it is like we want to make sure that we're continuing life and not neglecting Rex. And
has Rex dealt with it okay? Or when I say dealt with it, has the mourning been overwhelming?
We were just really thrilled that he understood what was going on while it was going on. And he's got his moments. Most of the time it's when we're talking about Uriah or if we go visit graveside. And so, which we bought 4 plots that day. So there's spot for all 4 of us with Uriah, which is a little morbid, but he's next to it. There's a brand new tree in the graveyard that he's in. And so he's next to a tree that'll just continue to grow even though he can't.
Yeah.
And so, he's done okay. There's for sure been moments, and early for sure the first month. And I don't remember what day it was. It was the next day or whatever. We just decided to do some normal December Christmas things, and we grabbed Rex out of his bed and threw him in our bed and put a movie on. And he kind of looked at us and he was like, well, it's just the 3 of us. What do we do now?
Yeah.
We live life and we glorify the Lord like that. Yeah. That's our purpose.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay. And so, Rex has a hard time expressing what's in his head sometimes. That's just part of the disability. And so one day I would love, like, all right, Lord, when I get to heaven, like, what were all the things that Rex knew that we just didn't? Like, what were the things that he wanted to communicate that we just couldn't get out of his brain? And so we get a little of that from him with Uriah. And so, that's been a weird little bit of a walk there too.
Yeah. The question that all apologists would want to ask you is, so you've faced down some pretty decent sized dragons here.
Yeah.
And yet you're still walking with Jesus.
Uh-huh.
How have you been able to manage that? What kinds of things have you learned about the Lord in the process of all of these difficult providences?
Yeah. Ecclesiastes 3:11, it says that God has made everything beautiful in his time. Yeah. Also, he's put eternity on man's heart. Yet man cannot understand what God has done from beginning to end. And that has been a life verse for me for over a decade. And then Psalm 16, it's either 5 or 6. The Lord is my portion and my cup. He holds my lot, which is a tattoo on my tricep, and it's in a mason jar because it holds a lot. And
your
it holds
tricep is?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's in a mason jar.
Yeah.
The tattoo is of a mason jar.
Yeah, and then
he just showed it to me. Yeah. So I was like, "Whoa, that's you tattooed your arm and then you put your tricep in a mason jar."
I did.
That's
odd. And so I have held on to the thing that I don't need to know all the things that the Lord is doing when he's doing it. And I've seen the Lord be faithful in some things that, like, I should be angry. The Lord has allowed me not to be. I should have been terrified every time we went to the hospital. The Lord was faithful. Maggie and I should be a wreck together as a couple. We're not. We got our things, right? But
everybody does.
We're not a wreck. And that is the faithfulness of the Lord that just keeps drawing me back. Yeah.
It's interesting the ability that you have in the moment that didn't come before the moment, but then when you get there, the Lord provides something for you that you didn't know.
It goes back to that youth pastor. I got to see him walk something and just depend on the Lord to lead the way, whether he knew the direction or the thing that was coming next. He drove a limo for over a year to provide for his family outside of ministry when some things fell apart ministry-wise. And he just persevered in the Lord. And you can't help but say that God is good, and I'm going to continue to follow that.
Yeah, you cast your lot with the Lord, and you trust that there is the beauty is that without Jesus, there's no hope for this. All you have is two children who had who had or have special needs. And that was just sort of a fluky, unlucky break for you.
And the reality is there was a time where I went, you know what, maybe I don't want to grow anymore. So I'm just going to back off from digging in with the Lord, because the Lord prunes those he loves.
Yeah.
Maybe if he doesn't like me as much, he won't prune me. And that didn't last long, because I realized I was being real dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But knowing the Lord, I mean, it's interesting, because we do have this hope. And we do have a hope that ultimately, especially in your case, you have the hope that you will walk with Uriah, and you will freely talk to Rex, and there will be a full renewal of their bodies, and the suffering that we faced on this side, or that you faced on this, and all of us have faced, but especially you, that has dug a hole in your soul that I think will fill with more grace than some of us will have experienced too. I mean, if your life doesn't have that kind of wound, it in the same way that if you go to a really bad campground and you come back to your home, you feel even better than if you go to the really nice glam camp and you come back. It's like, well, it's not that much different. But for people who've gone through a lot of sorrow, the eternity and the joy of Christ is especially wonderful.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. I mean, awesome that you've continued to follow Jesus, and it's really great to talk to you, Jon.
Has it been an hour already?
Something like that. It has. But it's been really great to hear you. I had no idea that you were a wilderness camper.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're like that little Russell guy in Up.
Sure.
Isn't that, that's you?
No, actually, I'm more like Doug the dog. Yeah, that really, or the squirrel from Over the Hedge.
You already. Yeah.
You've seen Over the Hedge.
I have.
After he drinks that energy drink.
It's crazy.
I've been described as that squirrel too.
All right. Well, it would have been hard to figure. I understand how your mom would have struggled to have you at home and homeschooling if that's the case.
Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot. I really appreciate you talking to me. Lord bless you and your family. And I'm actually looking forward to next time I see Rex.
Great.
Yeah.
Love it.
And for the rest of you, we will talk to you next time.